What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Crash Course Metal Show. I'm your host, Trevor Crash Knight, and we got with us here another week, another day, and another episode. Chris Elliot from 86 Bullets. What's going on, brother?
Hey, not a whole lot. What's going on with you, man?
Not much, not much. Same old here, I guess. But so what we're going to be bringing you guys today is an album review of the progressive band, metal band, Dream Theater, their second album from 1992, Images and Words. So, Chris, I'll just go through a quick little bio of this album here. Like I said, it did come out in 1992. This had two singles off of it, which was Pull Me Under and also Another Day. Those were the two singles. And the album did go gold in USA and in Japan, and it reached peak number 61 in the two top 200 Billboard charts. So you got James LeBrie on lead vocals, which he did come over from a Canadian glam metal band, which was who do we Winter Rose, I believe it was. If I remember correctly, that was the glam. He was in a glam metal band before coming over to Dream Theater, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. And then you also have John Petrucci on guitar, Kevin Moore on keyboard, Mike Portnoy on drums and percussion, and John Myung on bass. So, Chris, just went over a quick little overview, but tell us a little bit about your history with this album.
Yeah, I first I didn't get into Dream Theater until around the year 1999. It was the Metropolis Part Two or whatever. Yeah, that the Scenes from a Memory, the concept album,
Right.
which is I had the first song I ever heard from them was Pull Me Under, though, and I did hear it when it first came out in 92 or 93.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was teaching guitar lessons at the time, and this kid brings in a tape, and it's Dream Theater, and he wanted to learn Pull Me Under. And I was like, holy crap, you know, this has got a lot of changes, and that guy's really good. So, I immediately knew that they were on another level musically, as far as being, and they were pretty much considered a prog metal band or one of the forerunners of prog metal, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of there was bands in the '80s that had that. We just reviewed what was it, Keeper of the Seven Keys with that band.
Right. Yep. Halloween.
Halloween, yeah, they were kind of an early prog metal. Iron Maiden was kind of prog. A lot of people consider them prog metal, but Dream Theater was kind of pulling out all the stops, with their musicianship and so forth. But Pull Me Under is the first song I heard. I thought they were really good, but what struck me is that they came out. Well, that was their second album. You're right. The first one was with Charlie Dominici, I think, or Dominech. He was like the original singer before
Mm-hmm.
James. So they had actually had, this was not their debut, although it was the one that got them catapulted into the stratosphere, basically.
Right.
But it came out at a very strange time. 92 was transitional. You had grunge coming out, like really strong. And so they, but their sound was not compromised, at least on this album at all. It's very 80s sounding, with the but very advanced.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main thing. So that was my first initiation to it. So I didn't actually pick up this album until years later. I got it after 99 because I'd gotten into Scenes from Memory first, and that actually took me a while to get into too, because I had got it. I think it was from the record club. You could get like 12, 13 CDs for a penny, and then you
Yeah.
quit, and then you sign up again, like, and just keep doing it. And they didn't care. They would just, I think they made their money off of licensing and so forth anyway. But I got that album, and I remember I listened to it like once, first three or four songs. I was like, this is okay, pretty good, whatever. Put it away, and then came back a few months later, and then it didn't leave my CD player for like a year. It was like my favorite album ever. It was so good. And it kept getting better. And I think a lot of these prog bands, that's the way I am with that. The first listen, it's good or whatever, but then it keeps getting better and better because there's so much ear candy. There's so much stuff going on. I don't think the brain can process all that at first. So this was an introduction to what was to come, but is really, really strong second album, or you could say first with James LeBray on the
Right.
lead vocals. But yes, so when I did get this record, it really was one of my favorites. It was great. It's a great album, and it struck me as pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't
I,
listen to the whole thing until years later.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm kind of in the same boat as far as you. Like, I'm not the biggest progressive metal guy, but I will say this is certainly one of the staples that someone needs to have in any, if no matter what subgenre of metal they're in, I think. So, but yeah, and like you said, Pull Me Under, how you heard that was a pretty big song, or even on commercial radio at the time as well. And obviously, even to this day, this is probably their most commercial album, and Pull Me Under is probably their most commercial song as well. So that kind of leads the way into us talking about this album. So we'll jump into the track listings here. Obviously, we got the opening track, "Pull Me Under," a beautiful riff, just a great riff that just grabs your attention. And even people that I know that don't really like the heavy metal or progressive metal can still get down with this song and that riff, and they absolutely love that riff. It draws everyone in that likes any part of a guitar, basically. So yeah, Chris, tell us a little more if you want to say, if you have anything else to say about "Pull Me Under."
Yeah, no, that was about it. When I first heard it, it was when it came out. One thing that I do remember about the video, if I'm not mistaken, James is wearing a Napalm Death shirt, which
Yeah,
I thought
that's
that was
right.
kind of interesting, seeing that. It's like because they're a pretty heavy band. And
Yeah,
more Cookie Monster, right, type vocals and so
exactly.
forth. But
Yeah.
I've seen him wear a lot of different kind of eclectic shirts, just different bands and so forth. But um, yeah, but the song is really proggy. John's got a great solo in it, just um, amazing playing by all members. It's just like this musical heaven for a musician. There's so much to pick apart. I mean, it's very proggy, but like you said, it's real catchy too. It's got
Hmm.
a great chorus. And the one thing, they don't play it live very often at all. I
Oh,
think I've
okay.
only seen them play it twice, and I've seen them a million times.
Really?
They
Okay.
well, they did the I was at the 25th, I think, anniversary tour of this album where they did the whole album in its entirety.
Yeah.
So they had to play it. you know, but I think I've only seen them like one other time play it voluntarily. And I think it was in the early 2000s. I think it was the 2002 tour when I saw them. I guess it was the album 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence.
Okay.
I think it was on that tour. I'm pretty sure they played it then, but they rarely play that live. So it's interesting because it's like their most popular song, but
Right. Yeah.
kind
That
of
is
like when
pretty strange.
the Doors didn't want to do Light My Fire. It's like the most popular song. I don't want to play that. I'm tired of it.
So yeah, I mean it's a good song. People that don't know it, go check it out. It's quite easily one of their best songs, obviously of the singles as well too. So moving on to the second track here, which I kind of forgot about, Chris, because I had this album for probably at least 6 to 8 years, but this one kind of went under the radar for me the first couple years, and especially until a nice refresher when we reviewed for this album here, or for this video. And I really enjoy Another Day. It's a nice slower pace song. I like the saxophone in it. I like how but it's not too proggy at the same time. It's only 4 minutes and 22 seconds long, so it's certainly the shortest actual song on here that's not like so much of an intro or a lead in. But man, Another Day, I this is that I'm quite happy to revisit this album and find this again, because I totally forgot about this song, and just a beautiful song as well.
I agree. It's beautiful, and they that's one thing I really like about this band. They don't always just slam you in the face. They will break it down and they'll get really melodic. Even their heavy stuff is melodic. And I love that
Hmm.
I'm just into melody. I just really like melody and music. And they're just masterful at it. And Another Day is just beautiful, amazing. And James has such a great tone and range. Like when he goes and that, and then Surrounded is another one like that that's on this record.
Yes.
um
Yep.
uh I'm thinking there was one on Awake, fall something, I can't think of the title, Fallen Man or something. There's a balladish thing like that. But anyway, yeah, it's got that really nice sound to it. It's kind of jazzy, and like you mentioned, there is a sax solo, and apparently it was the dude from Spyro Gyra that came in and did like one take and like knocked it out of the park.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
What's what
I wasn't aware who did that. Okay.
Yeah, Jay Beckenstein, I think was his name. But I used to listen to Spyro Gyra all the time, like in the 80s. Like they were like one of my go-to not guilty pleasures, but one of those bands you would never think that I would listen to, kind of, because they were real just jazz fusion, a lot of horns and keyboards. And I mean, yeah, they had a guitar player, I think I remember too, but anyway, that was one of their the horn players, and he just came in doing a session and just knocked it out of the park. It's a great solo.
I
um
agree.
so yeah, that's it's a really strong way to start the album.
It is. It is. So yeah, and to keep talking as far as a strong way to start the album, we got track number 3 coming up here. Take the Time, which is another fan favorite from my understanding, from a lot of fans of Dream Theater. A lot of the fans do like this song as well. But I mean, now you're starting to get into the long stuff again here. 8 minutes and 20 seconds long. So it's a good song, and not, but just it's certainly in the top half of the album for me. But I kind of I like the lyrics as well, but something like I'll take a couple of other songs off this album before this one. Nothing wrong with it, but it's just certainly not the first one that I would pick. But still, nonetheless, it's still certainly a strong third song coming straight off the album here, right from the start.
Yeah, and it's another heavy one too,
Right.
and it's proggy. It's pretty long, right? Because it is over 8 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. Over eight
um
minutes.
yeah, so it's signature DT right there. It's got the progginess, it's got the melody, the hook, a lot of great playing on it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're off to a pretty good start here.
Yeah. And certainly. And now, even for the fourth track, like you said earlier, for Another Day, another song somewhat similar, but Surrounded, which is 5 minutes long, or 5.5 minutes long, not too long at all. And but it's just another one of those. I don't know if it's as beautiful as Another Day, but it's certainly really well. This one kind of reminds me of a little bit more of a ballad than Another Day is, but that's just kind of the feel that I got listening to these two side by side. but it's still nonetheless, that's how you want to start your first four songs on an album, no doubt. Certainly. Now I was kind of taken back that they would start out the album two songs out of the first four as slower songs, like more on the ballady side of things. But I think that's all to the more credit of how good this album is.
And that's a good point. Like the whole album is not super heavy. You've got that. Wait for Sleep is like another slow one. That's coming
Hmm.
up later.
Right.
So you've got at least, I don't know, three or four songs that, well, I guess it's really three. The rest are pretty heavy for the most part. Yeah, yeah. Um, what just while I'm at it, I'll make a quick correction. The song I was thinking of was The Silent Man from Awake, the next album, which would have been another ballad that it reminds
Okay, gotcha.
another day. But yes, Surrounded starts nice and mellow with James in that range again where he's not belting it out, but he's got that really nice tone to his voice, and then it brings it up, and it picks up the pace, but it's definitely a little more not poppy, but just more light-hearted, I guess, than a lot of the other ones. But it is a really good song.
Very. Yeah, and certainly I was surprised I didn't pick these up. Another Day and Surrounded. I didn't pick them up earlier in my catalog as far as just running under the radar because I just totally forgot about some of these songs on this album because I haven't listened to this album for at least a couple years the whole way through. So it was a nice you know, coming back to it. It was very cool. So definitely those two songs are going to be on the ballad playlist, even though they're not technically ballads or anything like that, but they're definitely on more of the chill side of things as far as this album goes. So moving on to another fan favorite here, track number 5, Metropolis Part 1. Man, this is a 9 minute and 30-second song. So this is certainly the second longest song on the album. And this is just classic Dream Theater. This is what you think of when you think of Dream Theater and who they like, what their identity is. And I have no issues with the song. It was certainly one of my favorites ever since I had this album. But the more I listened to it this past week or two, near towards the end, I'm kind of getting lost in the song. I'm kind of like, this might be just like a minute or two too long of just like randomness going on here. Nothing wrong with it per se, but for me, when I took notice, like the last four times I was listening to the song, like near the end of it, I was just like, I kind of forget what song I'm listening to right now. I don't know if it was just where I'm at this week or whatever, but that's kind of like the only nitpick I have for the song is just maybe it's just a tad too long. But other than that, it's really good nonetheless.
I don't hear that, but I do agree as far as it is sort of the prototypical Dream Theater song. And it's very proggy, it's long. It's probably got 33 different changes,
Yeah.
different parts to it, right?
Right.
It actually is a precursor to some of their other songs, at least Metropolis Part 2, which I referenced earlier, the scenes from a memory. They take and I think it's masterful. Actually, a lot of bands you would say they were plagiarizing, but they'll take one of their riffs or melodies and they'll like put it in another song down the road, you know,
Right.
but not exactly, but they'll twist it a little.
Yeah.
But that's actually pretty advanced stuff. Beethoven, man, go back to classical music like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony or something. They'll have that they call it a motif, the da 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 da, right? And then
Mhm.
like later on in the symphony, he would be doing like the da 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 rhythm, but it might be with different notes or different instruments,
Exactly.
and it
Yeah.
might be in the low string section, and it's like a underlying theme, and then the melody's doing something else. So it's really cool in bands, I think, when they kind of go back and throw a little bit of that, something from before, and you're like, hey, that was from that other song, but they don't copy the song. They just kind of hint at it, and then they, go off into something else. So they do that, and you'll hear like things that became like in other songs later, but you hear that in Metropolis, little bits and pieces, which,
Yeah.
again, I think is really cool. But it's really proggy. It is long. You're right. It is a long song, but that's just how they do it.
Yeah, it's certainly good.
But most songs anyway.
Yeah, there's certainly good parts in this song. Nothing to take away from how good the song is. It's just for me, just a tad, little bit too long, and we're just getting too kind of crazy. But then again, I mean that is kind of what progressive metal is, and just like the pioneer, or not pioneers necessarily, but like one of the staple bands of progressive metal, none, no doubt, Dream Theater. So that's what you expect from Dream Theater, though. At the same time, so moving on to track number 6 here, Under a Glass Moon. Here we go with a 7-minute song here. This one might be one of the weaker ones for me. One that probably won't make the iPod or hasn't ever made the iPod, and I just don't have too much. There's some good guitar work in here, no doubt about that. But this one here is just kind of hit and miss for me. I don't really have too much to say on it, but Chris, if you have anything, go ahead.
Cult fan favorite, man.
Yeah,
It's like Under a Glass Moon. um, and it's also John's got a great solo in it too. It's very proggy, like fusionish.
yes,
Um, I think it's strong, man. I like it. I don't have a lot to say about it, but I think it's a strong entry. I think a lot of if you want to be anything critical, like of the whole record, uh, and not in a bad way, let me put it this way. I think that their tones, especially John's tone, improved in later years. Like the more he, like their most recent stuff, some of the best guitar tones like I've ever heard in my life are on the more recent Dream Theater albums. And he's gone through change. I mean, he's used Mesa Boogie amps the whole time.
hmm,
Now he's got his own signature model now, but he's got like his own line of guitars and so forth. Back then he was playing Ibanez, I think, wasn't it? What was the one that had all the little patchy colors on it? And
yeah, okay, yeah,
that was
I
kind of his
remember
go-to or
those.
something.
Yes,
But I think his tone got a lot better. Like
okay,
not that it was bad on here, but it was just a little more, wasn't as warm, I guess.
all right,
But I'm just nitpicking totally. I mean, how many band? I mean, you put out an album like this, you could just die, and like your whole life would be worth,
right, yeah,
everything. I mean, it'd be amazing, right? But yeah. So that I just wanted to mention that. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I think some phenomenal playing on there, and that's another heavy track, which brings us to, well, Wait for Sleep, which is next, and that's back to another little more chill song.
yeah, yeah. Certainly, I kind of feel like this kind of feels a little bit more like an intro to Learning to Live, but just because it's like 2 minutes long or 2.5 minutes long. But I kind of view these last two tracks, Wait for Sleep and Learn to Live, as one. But yeah, still, either way you look at it, still good, really good. I like bringing the slowness back in a little bit here. Uh, but yeah, I can dig Wait for Sleep. That's a good precursor here to the final track.
Yeah, and that's another Kevin Moore penned song. I think he wrote lyrics for a couple others, right? Pull Me Under, I believe, is Kevin Moore.
Yeah, yeah,
But he would occasionally write like I don't know all the music, but he's credited for the music. This one and I think off of Awake is Space Divest, which I believe is another Kevin Moore. And it's kind of interesting if you talk to some really hardcore Dream Theater fans. Some of them are just really I think they were better when they had Kevin Moore as opposed to Jordan Rudess or Derek Sherinian was there for an album or two, but
hmm,
it's usually the Jordan Rudess. I mean, Jordan Rudess is a monster, right? He's like just phenomenal, like
yeah,
just so good. And I think their music in later years is as good or better than anything they have ever done. In fact, I think their last album is pretty much close to perfection. So,
wow,
they've
okay,
definitely, yeah, I mean, it's not like there's any slouch there, but there was a different sound that they had with Kevin Moore, and
yes,
he was like a school buddy of theirs. I mean, he wasn't like the most proficient technically keyboardist. He wasn't a Derek Sherinian or a Jordan Rudess, or at least we didn't hear that.
Yeah.
He was not quite as technically uh, virtuosic, I guess you could say, but some of his writing, like the chemistry was really cool. You
Mhm.
have to, and it's something you can't replace no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And and I think some people miss that. They say, yeah, they were better with, Kevin Moore. And I kind of get that. I kind of can see that. And this is a good song that exemplifies that. Like
Hmm.
they would have like songs like this that were real. I don't know. I mean, I can't even describe it. It's real mellow, good. It's moody and cool. And it's also got the title track in it, right? That's where they sing the line "Images and Words,"
Yeah.
which is part of the title of the album. So I think it's a great, and like you did mention, I didn't think of it like that before, but it is kind of an intro to learning to live. But it's a nice little connector there to kind of relieve some of the real crazy proggy and heaviness, and then you get this little respite, and then you're back to slamming the doors and knocking down the walls to finish the album with
Yeah.
learning to live.
Yeah. So yeah, we could talk about learn to live, then finish up here. This is the final track, the eighth track. You got 11 minutes and 30 seconds to finish it out. And it's a good song to finish the album. I don't think it gets too much better than that. And I it it's more of the same as far as like you get, the classic Dream Theater here. You're getting the good solos, good vocals, just good writing in general. I dig Learn to Live. I dig this album more than I thought I did from when I was younger. Let's just put it that way. Kind of like how you said in the opening that this album, it gets better every year that goes by for you, basically. So I agree with that. But yeah, Learn to Live though, the final track, certainly a good one to end off on all counts.
It's yeah, one of their stronger songs. I mean, obviously, it's a great ending song. It was a state. How do you call it? Staple of their live show, I guess,
Right.
for many
Okay. Yep.
years. I think I've heard him play. I don't know that they play it as much anymore, but uh, 11 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's long, but it takes you on a journey. And that's like some of the best Dreams Theater. What it does is it just takes you along for this ride.
Hmm.
And they're masterful at that. Like, you'll be on some, you have this nice song and then you just go off onto this, like I said, it's like a journey. It's like you're point A to point B to point C to D, blah blah, around and around, and you come back to the song. But they just masterfully do that. Learning to Live pulls out all the stops. It's got a great chorus, very, it's catchy. Uh, Musicianship again off the charts,
Hmm.
just amazing, very proggy, and yeah, I think it sums it up, man. It's a really, really, really good album, and they deserve everything they got from being launched off the pad, I guess you could say. And again, it was against the tide. You had 1992,
Yeah.
93. I mean, geez, it was really, really tough to be a metal band.
It was. Yeah.
And I guess especially prog metal.
I was gonna say
Like this,
what exact yeah, because like thrash at the time was weaning out. Obviously glam, like you said, all metal. It didn't matter what subgenre of metal it was. You weren't on the radio. You weren't getting sales. You weren't on TV. So yeah, that is a quite strange like how well this did for how maybe niche it was at the time. Now, that kind of leads me to this point. As far as progressive metal goes, is this the quintessential album for progressive metal? Images and
hmm,
words?
that's a good observation or question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess you could say it was definitely pivotal. It was like when it came out, it turned some heads. And I mean, what else did you have? of that caliber at that time. I'm sure there's stuff that's going under my radar. I mean, you had like Symphony X came out a few years later.
Yeah.
And they're amazing,
Yeah,
right?
like you had that progressive rock, like as far as that goes, yeah, you had all of that. But as like far as a metal, I'm trying to think what exactly, like as you said, Iron Maiden, they hinted at that. They hint at that, but it wasn't them though. Like every song wasn't 7+ minutes long. So
Yeah, well, Halloween is in there too, right? I mean,
yeah,
they were pretty
they hint at it.
exploratory.
Like a lot of their songs are more on like the power metal and like more
Yeah,
on speed and stuff like that. But the songs themselves weren't that long. A couple of them were, yes. That
okay.
went like 13 minutes long and such. So yeah, they hint at it too. But none. There's new one band that I would say like they were defined as that, as progressive metal. So that's a very interesting question because like I said, my progressive metal uh range isn't as wide as in other subgenres of metal. So that's kind of an interesting question, which anyone that's watching in the comments, let us know as well what you guys think might be the quintessential progressive metal album would be. Would this be it? Would Images and Words be it? I'm not sure, Chris. I didn't know if you
Yeah,
had an
I should.
idea.
Yeah, I can't think of a lot of in that genre. It sort of was a genre created by accident, I guess, almost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like these bands were just, hey, we're heavy metal bands, but then
Yeah.
they into really technical stuff. You know, like well, Iron Maiden is sort of your at the beginning. You know, you had they're considered progressive metal in a lot of ways. I
And then
definitely think they are.
obviously
You
you
had
had Injustice for All, maybe you could throw in there, but I like you don't think of
yeah,
Metallica as that though.
not
It's
usually.
a little different
No.
just because of the instruments, I guess you could say too. They brought in a whole slew of different instruments, Dream Theater that is.
Well, you
And
could like King's X might be in there too. It's
yeah,
another
now do you
early
consider them
kind of
more metal or more rock though? That's kind of like where like do we which way do we go on that side then too? So I heard
yeah,
both.
because you had a lot of rock progressive bands,
Yeah.
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But then with the progressive metal bands, it's a good question. I mean, to me, the top ones that I know of are like you've got Dream Theater and Symphony X, bands of that nature, but I'm sure there's some other going under the radar, and maybe people can drop them in the comments and let us know what we're missing here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that this really turned some heads when it came out, obviously, and just that they could have the staying power. It just is a testament to how good they were and how strong
Right.
this album was to create a fan base or build it at that point and then carry through the 90s and just keep getting bigger and bigger. So, I mean,
Exactly.
they're a pretty cult, it's a cult band for a lot. I mean, they're not definitely not, I don't think they're played on the radio anymore,
No,
like
yeah.
not,
Yeah, not anymore
yeah.
anyway. Not since
Maybe this
1993,
was
I
the
would
only song or something.
yeah. Yeah, and I
Well,
don't think any other album went gold either. No other album got certified. As if I read that correctly, but I think this is the only album that they ever did that got actually like commercially successful. Well, some shit here as far as at the time, Another Day with the saxophone stuff. And at the time, though, Kenny G was getting some popularity too, commercially.
hmm,
And obviously, he's big with his like all kinds of flutes and saxophones and all that different type of orchestral stuff, horns and such. But and I kind of feel like that kind of song, Another Day, could have been a little bit bigger than what it was. And I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of maybe metal fans just don't want to hear that. But I mean, I don't mind some Kenny G once in a while, especially the funky stuff and such, the real early stuff. But I don't know. I think Another Day had a lot of potential and it just never really hit the ground running. And maybe that could also be the year as well that came out. So yeah,
yeah,
this is quite a album to unpack with only 8 tracks, but each song is very long though, so it's a lot longer than your standard 8 track album.
there. I mean, the musicianship is just carries it. But the other thing is, and people get this wrong about Dream Theater. I think there's a misconception. Oh, they're just good musicians. It's a bunch of, but it's all just, what do you call it? There's no song. It's just,
Yeah, okay.
technical stuff going off. But that's not true at all. Their songs are some of the best songwriting that I've ever heard in my life. I mean, they're amazing songwriters.
Yeah,
Like they write great songs. Now, if you don't have the patience for 8 or 9 minutes of a great song, well, I
right.
can't help you there. But if you have patience to just enjoy this music, I mean, it's amazing. So it's not like that they're just great at their music, their instruments, but their songs aren't that good. It's not even like that. They have incredible music. I mean, some of the best stuff I've ever heard in my life is Dream Theater. Some of my most favorite songs that have moved me, not just technically from that point of view, but emotionally. Like I'll tear up. I mean, some of it is
Right.
just so freaking good,
Right.
but it's usually the melodies and it's the hooks and, it's James's voice and the band, so good, just doing amazing things behind him. So, I mean, or maybe John will play some solo that's just, beautiful, melodic, and then he'll just go incredibly nuts and shred your face off the next minute. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, you just get everything with this band. And this is a good example if you want to get into these guys. Like, where do you start? I mean, this is a good starting point. I'd also, I'd point out like their last album is, like I said, I think it's as close to perfection as you can get. Because
Hmm.
usually there's always one or two songs on every album. It's like, that's not quite so good or whatever,
Yeah.
But I think they're hitting on all 8 cylinders, and I, they didn't change members a whole lot, which is pretty interesting. Like Kevin Moore was the first. They went to a couple keyboard players. They've had two drummers, and James has been singing since this album. And I mean
Right.
that's about it, right? So
Yeah,
they're a
that's
pretty
important.
loyal bunch, and they stick
Yeah.
together. So I think that helps with their chemistry too.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't say it any much better than what you basically said about this album. So I agree. We both give it thumbs up. Definitely something, especially if you like the longer stuff and the more technical of music and metal in general. Certainly Dream Theater Images and Words is a staple that you need to go check out, and we fully approve of that. So guys, I guess that pretty much wraps up the show. Let us know in the comments what you think of Dream Theater Images and Words, and tell Chris also what you think of the new album, because I have not listened to the new album yet. So I am quite interested in checking that out very shortly. So, guys, until next time, that's Chris Elliot from 86 Bullets, and I'm Trevor Crash Knight. We want to thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys later.
Yeah, I wrote that. It's called I Want to Rock Your Body. And then in parentheses it says to the break of dawn.